Hi guys, welcome to day 4 of poetry. Today is all about revising, editing, and publishing a final draft of one of the poems that you've worked on this week. Before we start, I just wanted to remind you guys that when you are trying out each day's strategy on your own, you're working on your poem for that day, make sure that you set a timer for 20 to 30 minutes. It's really important to us that you write for that period of time. Now, if you can write longer than 30 minutes, go for it. This is just a suggestion, but we don't want you to write less than 20 minutes. Our goal is for you guys to really push yourself and challenge yourself and have this growth mindset. Try out these strategies, really work on your writing stamina. All right? So let's review what we did this week. Day 1 was all about ideas because we know that we can't write if we don't have ideas. So you all created your ideas list. Day 2, we looked at the poem Football and Bad Days. My whole reason for looking at those two poems was, I guess, kind of another way for us to generate ideas. I wanted everyone to see that sometimes our ideas can come from work that's already been published or from somebody else's work. Already, I've seen a lot of you write about sports that you play, kind of like in football. Some of you were even writing about your good days or your bad days or what's going on in your life right now, like how COVID is kind of affecting your life. So I feel like that came from these poems. So you got some inspiration from these poems, which is perfect. Day 3 was all about writing small poems. We learned that poems can come in any length. But most importantly, we learned that when you write poetry, any length, especially in small poems, that your word choice is incredibly important. So what we're going to do today is revise and edit. Your task is to go back to the work that you've done this week and to choose one poem. Now, if you want to start fresh today and write a new poem and take that through the revising and editing phase, that's okay too. But one poem. Also, in Google Classroom, underneath this video, there's a PDF of the checklist that we're going to be using to revise and edit. So don't worry about writing anything down. Everything will be there. So when this video is done, go back there. You can print out that PDF and use it as a checklist just to make sure that you get through everything that we're talking about today. All right, let's get on to revising and editing. So let's start with revising. Remember that revising means to make your writing better than it already is. So our focus for today and this week's work is actually just on word choice. We want to make sure that for whatever poem you choose to publish today, you have amazing word choice. So we're going to challenge you to go back to that poem, reread it, and look for opportunities where you can switch out words and find synonyms for words, where you can add vivid verbs to your work or adjectives to describe something better. All of these things make your writing come alive, make your poetry come alive, make your poetry much more interesting. Plus, it shows that you know a lot about your topic, and that's something else we want to see today. So, for example, if somebody was writing about football and you said something like, I kicked the football, well, that's great. You know, you do kick a football. But what's another word that you might use instead of the word kicked? The first thing that comes to mind is punt. Now, I don't know a whole lot about football, so I hope that I'm using that word correctly. But couldn't you maybe use the word punt instead of kicked? Isn't that a much more descriptive synonym than just kicked? So that's kind of what we're looking for today when you go back and revise your work. Look for opportunities to find synonyms for words, make your wording better, add great verbs to it, add adjectives. The next thing is editing. Editing is all about finding errors and fixing them. Today we're going to use the acronym COPS to remind you of the 4 elements that we want you to look for when you edit your work. And don't forget, all of this is in that PDF that I've attached in today's must-dos. The C in COPS stands for capitals. Now, I know a few months ago when we talked about poetry, we learned that sometimes poems break the rules of writing and they don't always have punctuation and capitals and things like that. We actually really want to see you have those things, especially if you used proper nouns or the first letter of your sentence should always have a capital. The O in COPS stands for organization. Is your work organized in a way that makes sense? Now, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I look at my own piece of writing, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. I wrote it. It's awesome. So what I would encourage you to do is to actually have somebody at home, if there's someone available, to read your writing. That new set of eyes is going to look at your writing in a way that maybe you're not looking at it. Ask them, does it make sense? You might even ask them to read it out loud to you, because sometimes when we hear our work from somebody else, we're like, oh, wait a second, that's not what I wanted to say. The P in COPS stands for punctuation. You know, if you're making a list of something, maybe you want to have commas, or maybe you really want to have an emphasis on what you're saying, so you have that exclamation mark. Or maybe you're asking a question in your poem, so it's going to make sense to have that question mark. You're going to notice in my work that I did add punctuation. The last one is spelling. I know that a lot of times when I talk to my writers, they have a pretty good idea of which words in their work are misspelled. So I challenge you guys to go back through your work when you reread it and circle the words that you think might be misspelled. You can definitely use a thinking partner to double check your work, but I also encourage you to use resources like a dictionary or dictionary.com to help you when you find the correct spelling for words. Please don't just go to someone and say, how do you spell this? We wouldn't do that in the classroom, and I don't want you to do it at home. All right? So once again, go back to that PDF, print it, pull it up as you're revising and editing so that you remember everything that we just talked about. Let's talk publishing. After you've revised and after you've edited your work, make sure that you read your poem one final time. Does it look the way that you want it to look? Does it sound the way that you want it to sound? If you're good, then I have 3 ways that you can publish and share your work with us. Number 1 is that you can take all of those changes and you can rewrite your poem on a new piece of paper, your neatest handwriting. You can add some illustrations if you want. Take a picture of it, record yourself reading, and share it with us through Seesaw. Number 2, I know some of you are already doing this. You can actually type your poem with all of the changes made to it. Again, you can print it out. You can add some illustrations if you want, and you can, again, record yourself reading it to us. The last option, in honor of, I think this is going to be one of our last nice days for a while, if you have some chalk, you can go outside and rewrite or write your poem on the sidewalk or in your driveway. This one's kind of tricky because you want to make sure that it's legible. So yeah, definitely take some time making sure that your writing is big and that it isn't all mushed together with that chalk. Again, take a nice picture of it and then record yourself reading it. And you can also add some illustrations there. I've included my rough draft with some revisions and also my final draft so you can see what I did today. We, once again, cannot wait to see your final draft. Just a reminder, this only has to be on one poem from this week's work. It is due by the end of today. Don't forget to print out or take a look at that checklist that I provided for you to make sure that you do all the revising and editing that you need to do. Good luck today. We hope you have a great time revising and editing and publishing your poem. We can't wait to see them. Have a great weekend. See you on Tuesday.